Okay, hi everyone. So I've been working on this Kid Icarus practice ROM, and this video is going to tell you what it's all about. Before we start, I should tell you that this practice ROM is really meant for people who want to speedrun Kid Icarus. This is not going to help you with a casual playthrough. So if you're speedrunning, then this might be for you. Alright, so there are 5 features in the practice ROM that I want to tell you about, so I'm going to use some save states, and let's just start going through it. Feature number 1. So if you speedrun this, you probably know about the strength upgrades, and there are certain stages where you need to get enough skill points to get a strength upgrade. But the skill points are never actually shown to you in the game. So I just killed a bunch of enemies, got a bunch of hearts. On the pause screen, I added a bunch of stuff. But what we want to look at right now is the skill. So it says skill 4,900. If I kill some more enemies, collect some more hearts. Now it says skill 5,660. So we're off to a good start because to get the strength upgrades, you need 10,000 skill. There are a lot of things that affect it. I'm not gonna get into every little detail right now, but killing enemies, collecting hearts, and a bunch of other stuff gets you skill. So the idea of this feature is that you can practice these stages, and if you find that you're not getting the strength upgrade, you can pause and see how close you were. Or if you get the strength upgrade and you pause and you find out that you have like 20,000 skill, then you know that that's completely overkill, and next time you don't have to kill so many enemies. So hopefully that's helpful. Alright, let's go to the next feature. For this one, I'm going to take us to stage 4-1. Alright, so you might know that in 4-1 you have to kill 50 enemies, otherwise the stage will repeat itself. So I'm showing the number of kills on the pause screen, but I'm showing it in kind of a weird place, so I have to explain this. Alright, so I've killed 4 enemies. If I pause at the bottom of the screen in the center, it says 4. So that's how many enemies we've killed. I'm kind of replacing the spot that usually shows how many feathers you have. So let's kill some more enemies and take a look. Now it says I've killed 6 enemies. So you need that to get to 50. So if you practice this stage and you find that you're not getting to 50, you see that the stage is repeating itself, you can pause and see how close you got and see if you got to 49 or whatever. All right, that's feature 2. Let's go to a different save state. So I'm using an EverDrive with EverDrive save states. Let's go to stage 3-1. So feature number 3 is kind of the main feature of the practice ROM, in my opinion. So when I was pausing earlier, you might have noticed that at the top of the screen it says timer with a number next to it. Right now it says 278, but if I unpause and walk around a little bit and then pause again, it says 880. So this is a frame counter that's built into Kid Icarus, but usually the game doesn't show it to you. And my idea with this feature is by showing the timer on the pause screen, we can use the start button as kind of a stopwatch, because I can do a strategy and then pause and see how many frames it took. So I'm going to show you this in this section here. First, I'm going to jump up here and go to the left. And I'm going to pause as soon as I get to this pillar. And it says 553 frames. So that timer starts at the beginning of every stage, and took me 553 frames to get to that pillar. So now I'm going to do the same section of the stage, but I'm going to do a different route. I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to pause at the same spot, and it says 447. So 553 minus 447 is 106 frames to get to the same spot. So what we just found out is that doing this route with this jump is 106 frames faster. Give or take a few frames, it's going to be different each time you do it, but that's almost 2 seconds. So the idea behind this feature is that you could try different strategies and compare them and see how many frames they differ by. Apparently that jump saves about 2 seconds. Another thing you could do is just pick one strategy and do it over and over and over again and grind one part of a stage and see how many frames it takes you and try to optimize your movement. And it doesn't have to be at the beginning of a stage. I just chose this because it was easy. All right, so that's it. I'll just mention that this feature, this timer that's on the pause screen, eventually it will go back to 0 and repeat itself, but that doesn't happen until it gets to around 65,000. And in order for that to happen, you'd have to be on one stage for 18 minutes, so you're probably not going to see it happen. All right, feature number 4. Feature number 4 is this other timer, the one that's up in the upper left. Now that one repeats itself pretty quickly. That only counts up to 255, and then it repeats. I'm going to show you that on one of the fortress stages. So let's go to 1-4. So if you wanted to, you could do the same thing I just showed you on 1-4, where you could like practice strategies and pause to see the timer. But it turns out that in the fortresses, you could also just use the small timer here. So I'm going to make a save state as I enter this door. I just save stated. And let's talk about this timer. One thing you notice is when I go through a door, the timer seems like it hesitates for a moment. But it keeps going. It keeps running even during the door transition. You know, it says 211, 11, 121, 183. So the fact that it kind of hesitates for a moment means we get to read it, that's pretty nice. We could see what the frame counter is at when we leave the room. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play through this room in a couple of different ways. All right, first of all, this is what I used to do. I would go the middle route, and the timer says 17. I'm going to do it again. Middle route, kill that guy, 17. It's really consistent. It's not too hard. But there are other ways you could get through the room. You could go down here, jump over this guy. And now it says 25. So for me personally, that was 8 frames slower, the lower route. Because remember, we're comparing to 17. That said 23, so that was 6 frames slower. I find that for me personally, the lower route is usually slower. I like this middle route. It's pretty easy. Usually gets through in a good amount of frames. But what I'm going to show you is there's a faster route, which is to go up top. And that says 13, so that was 4 frames slower. If I do it perfectly, 7. If I do it perfectly, it's about 10 frames faster. So the top route compared to the middle route, compared to the bottom route, you can use this frame timer to see how many frames they differ by, and then you could do that in other rooms and experiment and, you know, find good ways to get through rooms, find what works for you. I find that the top route is the fastest, but it's also the most difficult, so, you know, decide what strategy you want to do. Before I move on from this feature, I just want to mention real quickly, there are a lot of things in Kid Icarus that are based on this frame timer, and you can use the fact that it's on the screen, you could use that to kind of figure some things out. So basically, lava will hurt you every time this timer is a multiple of 32. That's why sometimes you can jump in and jump out of the lava real quickly and not get hurt. It only hurts you if this is a multiple of 32. The spikes in certain fortress rooms, they pop in and out according to this timer. The 1-4 boss shoots a fireball every 256 frames, according to this timer. And the 1-4 boss will jump according to this timer. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but I know that the boss only jumps when this timer says 0 or 128. So if you play this and pay attention to the timer, you might notice other things like enemy behavior and stuff like that. Maybe you can figure some stuff out. I'm going to try to figure some stuff out about how some of these things work. Feature number 5. Feature number 5, I'm going to go to stage 1-1, and feature 5 is that the Reaper projectiles are shown on the screen. So let me explain what I mean by this. You know that in Kid Icarus, sometimes you want to sneak past the Reapers without getting seen. And it turns out the way that Reapers work is they shoot invisible projectiles. And if those invisible projectiles hit you, then the Reaper sees you. So what I did in the practice ROM is I replaced the invisible projectiles with little dots. So let's get to this first Reaper here, and you're gonna see the Reaper shooting dots. Look at that. All right, so let me kill these enemies. So that's pretty cool. By the way, there's kind of a weird thing that if I pause and unpause, sometimes it changes the color of the dots. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but that's not super important. But yeah, now you see the Reaper is shooting white dots, sort of a high one and a low one. I'm gonna go to the next set of Reapers so that we can see 2 Reapers at the same time. Oh, by the way, you might notice these little dots next to the chalice. So the dot is basically Kid Icarus has like a placeholder sprite that it uses for anything that's invisible, and I replaced it with this dot, and the Reaper projectile is the most important use of it, but it might show up in a couple of other places. Alright, so here we're going to see 2 Reapers. Oh, I didn't want that one to fall. I was hoping that guy wouldn't fall, but that's okay. We'll work with it here. You know, they sometimes fall through platforms. Alright, check it out. You got 2 Reapers shooting these things. That's basically their eyesight. That's basically how they see. And if any of those touches you, then the Reaper sees you, freaks out. You notice that the projectiles are blocked by walls. And if you look at the Reaper up top, you might see the projectiles are also blocked by the bushes. If this Reaper was still up here, you would see that this pillar also blocks projectiles. So foreground objects that you know you can walk through and you can shoot through, they protect you from the Reaper projectiles. It can be the bushes, the trees, the pillars, all of those things. So that's pretty cool. And for a long time, I suspected that this is how the Reapers worked, but I wasn't able to actually see it until recently. So I think it's a cool feature to have. You know, by having this in the practice ROM, we could practice trying to sneak past the Reapers without getting seen, and also just get like a better understanding of how they work. One thing you might notice is when the Reaper gets close to the edge of the screen, it looks like the projectiles are coming out faster. But really it's just because each Reaper can have a high projectile and a low projectile, like one each, on the screen at a time. So as soon as the projectile gets off the edge of the screen, it shoots out a new one. Anyway, if you stare at this long enough, it starts to make sense. Alright, so those are the 5 features. Before I finish this up, let me just tell you about a couple of bugs that I know about. So the first bug that I know about in the practice ROM is if I pause, you see that it says I'm on stage 9-1, and that's wrong. So basically the practice ROM shows the stage incorrectly. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if you're speedrunning this, you probably know what stage you're on. I just thought I would mention it. What else? Oh, one other thing. This whole video, I've been playing on an EverDrive, and I've been using save states that I made with the vanilla game, but I've been using them in the practice ROM, and that's perfectly fine. But there's one little detail I should tell you, is sometimes if you use save states made from the vanilla game, you might not see the Reaper projectiles. And it's not really a bug, it's basically the way that Kid Icarus loads sprites is it'll load the sprite sheet for the world that you're in when you start the world. And I adjusted the sprite sheet to have this little dot in it. So if you start from a save state that's in like 3-2 and you don't see the Reaper projectiles, that might be why. You basically, if you want to see the Reaper projectiles, you might want to make save states specifically with the practice ROM, where you start the world, like start world 3 in the practice ROM and make a save state. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't really think that's a bug. I don't really think there's anything I can do about that. It's just kind of, that's how Kid Icarus loads sprites at the beginning of each world. All the other features should be fine with save states. Yeah, so that's it. I guess I'll say you should read the description of this video, because I might put some notes there if I think of anything else. But yeah, this is version 0.3. I don't know if I'll ever make a new version or not. If I do, I'll add it to the description. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions.